Welcome back to Bearing Lifers, the podcast that is ready to roll into the interesting world of bearings. I'll be your professional driver on this bearing road trip, Ben Walls. Whether you're a seasoned expert or just getting your temps in the industry, Bearing Lifers guarantees a fantastic conversation. So buckle up and get ready because we're about to accelerate into our fifth episode. Today, I have the privilege of welcoming a truly remarkable individual who has navigated numerous roles in the bearing industry, always keeping things rolling smoothly. It's with great pleasure that I introduce Rob Schroner, someone who has been known to reduce friction in both machinery and leadership. Rob, we are thrilled to have you on Bearing Lifers. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. So let's kick it off. So, how did you get started in the bearing industry? How long have you been in it? What's the stories? What's your origin story?
Uh, Started back. Actually, my dad was in the
Um,
bearing industry. What?
yeah, we lost
Can you hear
audio
me?
there for a second. It was weird.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, no problem. It all started back. My dad was in the bearing industry, and he was a lifer also in the bearing industry. Started out with distribution, and out on the West Coast, he worked for a company originally Valley Industrial Supply, and then King Bearing bought him out. And so I went on my first breakdown when I think I was about 12 years old to a sand plant at 11:30 p.m. hauling two and 7/16 pillow blocks out there to help the customer on a breakdown.
Excellent.
So it kind of bit me there, and I tried to take different avenues. Went in for business and marketing in college, and when I got out of there, I just felt that sales was the direction to go. So that's when I started for King Bearing.
Nice. And did you start in the sales and kind of transition through your career into more of the technical stuff? Have you stayed in sales the whole time?
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, I actually, would help my dad out during the summertime also with inventory and building hose assemblies and delivering to customers. But when I started there full time, I did start in outside sales. And what I quickly discovered is there's a ton of salesmen out there, but there's not too many people who can really problem solve selling. Get into the root cause failure analysis and dig deeper into it. That way, solving the customer's problems and building those relationships versus, just going in and handing them a line card.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is definitely something that I've seen a lot of the distributors even drop bearing out of their title, and they're expecting their outside sales team to be well versed in not just bearings or PT, but in all of these different avenues of the
Right.
products that they offer. So trying to be an expert and being able to problem solve in every one of those fields is getting more and increasingly challenging for a lot of these distributors to run that entire gambit, yet still have that problem solving niche that a lot of those end user customers kind of expect, with calling a distributor and they're not buying parts on Amazon.
Right, right, right. And a lot of the what I'm seeing today, and I'm sure you're seeing it too, is a lot of the people coming up in the industry. It's just, oh, I need a part number. I need a part number rather than, hey, why do you need this replaced? What can we do? Went to college and took a course in root cause failure analysis, and so that helped me a lot on identifying problems and really working with customers and digging into issues, and it's really helped me throughout my entire career.
Nice. Uh, what are your challenges you're seeing right now in the industry that weren't a problem back in the day, that they are a problem now? Like, how has the industry changed and it's causing you, new challenges as opposed to where it was when the industry.
Yeah, what I would say, the new challenges up and coming are the new generation. We're not getting as many people interested in sales, and it's become almost a part number generation. I talk with a lot of people that here, at my current position at Scheffler, that have been here 30, 40 years. And they're saying the attrition rate of people, the old knowledgeable guys leaving, is creating a whole new focus on trying to get the new people up and coming and up to speed. And so, one of the things we've done here is put together a complete training program, and we train all of our people here at Scheffler. We start them off in what we call our fit training, and it's fit for the job is what they call it for. And we run everybody through it that talks with the customer so that it gives them an easier path into sales rather than just being, that guy that takes the part numbers. So that's probably the biggest thing I see our industry's having problems with.
Have you guys have any like initiatives with trying to get some of these younger guys? We've noticed that trying to onboard young guys to operate equipment or understand bearings, that it's been like that lack of knowledge. They don't really understand the product, yet they're really passionate about something else. So trying to target that passion that they already have, maybe in the EV vehicles or renewable energy or something that's going to help better society, has been like our
Yeah,
target. And be like, hey,
right.
bearings go in everything that rotates. If you're passionate about that EV or SpaceX or anything that looks cool industrial sales wise,
Yeah,
bearings specifically can plug into that. If you're passionate about it, you can find an avenue to be successful. We found it that was kind of our little initiative internally, is finding out those passion points and then kind of building on their education surrounded by those passion points has kind of helped us, and it seems like a lot
yeah,
of companies are starting to do that. Do you guys have something like that?
yeah. And Ben, it goes back to what we were talking about. When you're calling on customers, it's finding that passion point. Some customers, it could be a car. Some customers, it's their family. Other customers, it's how can I get this piece of machinery running as efficiently as I can?
Yeah.
Are we breaking up again?
Yeah, we were. Yeah, I think it's back though.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, it's that passion point that we're trying to address also. No, I
Yeah.
get it, and I get where you're coming from, and bringing people in. We have a lot of leadership training programs here, and so it talks about what do you do with your employees and how do you get them motivated.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's getting the customer motivated to buy from you. You know.
Yeah. So within your decades of bearing
Easy.
lifer experience, do you have any memorable bearing stories? I mean, a lot of the guys that I've talked to in the industry that are bearing lifers, and we kind of
Yeah.
took that term from just me coming up talking to all these old timers that have been in the industry for decades, that like, if you're in bearings now, if you make it 5 years, you're going to be in bearings forever because you're going to find something that you end up being passionate about. But
Right.
because bearings are so diverse, the stories that some of these guys have that have been in the industry forever, there's some of them are wild. Do you have any of these kind of interesting bearing stories that you could share?
Yeah. It is really interesting because in my career, going from distribution to manufacturing, um, what that root cause failure analysis allowed me to get into places that a lot of people couldn't get into. Case in point, Disneyland. I spent almost 2 years with their engineering, their Imagineering team, and we would meet every other Tuesday, and we would have root cause failure analysis. So if something failed in the park or they want to modify a ride, they get all these engineers together, and I got invited to do that, and they came up to me one time. It started out with a simple gearbox, electric motor gearbox coupling. Hey Rob, is this the right one? Well, okay. What's your service factor? We went through all the nuts and bolts on, specking in this part of equipment, and they're like, yeah, but where did you come up with this? And I said, well, it's all the training classes I took way back when that gave me that knowledge. And they said, hey, we got a problem over on this Indiana Jones ride. And I'm like, okay. It said it's costing us a lot of money. We figure our estimated budget on it annually is about $500,000. and we need to solve this problem. So I get dragged out, and what was really cool is each ride has their own maintenance department. So I jump in there and have this, discussion with the maintenance manager for that ride, and it's a hydraulic issue. And I'm like, well, why are you asking me? Well, Rob, we found out that over your time out there, that you can help us solve this problem. I said, okay. So we started digging into it, looked at the manifold that they had, and I said, hey guys, you're doing this, you're creating cavitation, but I don't think it was designed this way. So let's look at the original print. So we pulled the original print. Just as I'm pulling the print, reviewing it, out of the corner of my eye, three guys walk in. And I look over at the maintenance guy, and I see at Disneyland, if you see a gold badge, it's VP and above. And one of the guys had a gold badge. And I kind of looked at him, and he says, oh, don't worry about him. And I said, okay, no big deal. So we went through this we diagnosed the problem, and it was a remanufactured manifold. So something simple, the guy didn't have the tool to drill deep into it enough with the right bit. So I said, go back to the original one, get the guy, if he's going to remake it, let's do this. And what ended up happening was that was the issue. So they went back and designed, got this guy to produce the manifold at the original design, and it solved their problem. And out of the corner of my eye, this guy says, hey, who is this guy? And at the time I worked for Loctite. Oh, it's a Loctite guy. What's he know about hydraulics? And the guy said, just give him a chance. And that's all I needed. And so, at the end, the guy came back to me and says, hey, we really appreciate what you're doing here. And anytime you can help us, we'll feel free to reach out to you and help you. And so in that time, I ended up working on design rides with these guys, worked on an 1896 steam locomotive that drives around Disneyland, helping them with the sealing issue they had, and these parts haven't been made for over 120 years. So that was really the one that primarily sticks out, and from then on, I've spun off with, how can you help your customers save money? The cost savings, the documented value added, whatever they see it as, and in my current position, it could be replacing a solid spherical roller bearing with a split and reducing downtime at a, paper mill or a steel mill. Now all of a sudden the cost savings are $500,000.
Yeah.
300,000. So, that's one of the cool stories that's always stuck with me.
Oh, absolutely, man. You're making magic happen.
Yeah. No pun intended there.
Oh, totally pun intended. So, like me, I mean, the bearing lifers term has come from the people in the industry that have really helped kind of usher in my generation, and which is still the next gen. I'm still not 40 yet. I turn 40 next year, and I don't know if I could count all the people that have either given me advice or encouraged me in the industry or just built the connections. Like competitor customer relation is kind of out the window when I look at a true bearing lifer, because they're looking at the industry and they want the industry to move forward. Are there any bearing lifers in the industry still, or that you can, tell a story or at least drop their names that have kind of helped you throughout your career?
It's interesting. If I go way back when my dad was working for the company, and every once in a while I'll run into guys that remember, the Harry Oranges, who was the president and owner of King Bearing, and guys like that, and the Bud Phipps and, the Ray DeVillas, all these guys that when I looked up to them and started working for them, they, at each level, you saw a different path, with the owner of the company, the Harry Oranges, you saw this 100,000-foot view that was almost, it wasn't comprehensible for me at my level. But then, as I started going through life and looking at those people that drove the bearing industry, Siva was one of them, Steve did. I mean, everybody knew him, and he took that small company that you now work for, that started out at a coffee table in his garage all the way up to what it is today, and it's people like that who actually change how things are done. That you know one of the cool things about Harry and the business he built there for King Bearing was we sold at a premium, and the customers knew it. But they knew they were going to get the best product, the best service, and if there was an issue, I can't tell you how many times I got called out at 3 o'clock in the morning, Pepsi Cola at Cargill Flour Mill to help them with a breakdown on a bearing that, some guy sold them different greases that were supposed to be the best, but they're non-compatible. So they failed a ton of bearings, and it's guys like that set into me, you know, it's easy to sell on price.
Yeah.
It's really, really tough to sell on quality.
Yep.
So, but when you sell on quality, your customer retention is a lot longer.
Yeah, for sure. So to wrap this up,
Mhm.
looking toward the future, looking at the industry grow and kind of change, especially with some of those bearing lifers that have really
Yeah.
made that overall impact. Is there anything in the industry that the industry's headed toward, or something new technology, products, or just how you guys are going to market as, as bearing people, as bearing manufacturers especially? Is there something new in the industry, like monitoring systems? I know a lot of
Yeah.
companies are doing monitoring systems, so failure analysis that
Right.
you kind of excel in. Is How do you see the industry changing for the future? Is it the technology, or what do you
Yeah. I
think?
see a lot of technology being added on to the basics.
Okay.
So, we sell a bearing,
Yeah.
you know, this bearing, the expectation or the L10 life, if you want to call it. Um, the customers expect that,
Yeah.
but that's in a perfect vacuum envelope. It's not you know, at a iron ore plant where where they've got that fine powder that just rips stuff apart, or a taconite plant. So what your direction and what you just brought up is what I see the industry going to.
Okay.
You know, the condition monitoring, combined with root cause failure analysis, combined with, vibration. And it's to the point where people are monitoring all the way down to the amp draws on the motors. So how do we take that whole big package and deliver it to the customer and say, okay, you know, now we're starting to actually get involved in cost savings on unrelated parts to us. But we're going to monitor the pump. We're going to monitor the motor. We're going to monitor the bearings also. Um, but hey, Mr. Customer, you can save 6% on your energy costs, which you spend 10 million a year, you know. And so I think those outside forces are forcing us to do that. But also in the expansion of the industry, I think you're going to see, a lot of people are talking about AI and everything related to AI. And you're going to start to see, the robotics and the learning components, you know, well, everything on a robot that moves has to have some rotating point.
Yep.
And so the companies these days are saying, I don't want the bearing. I want you to sell me the arm. So a lot of companies are going to that, that you'll see, whether it's, reducing the waves that a boat takes, the pitch and yaw, or it's, we've got this piece of equipment that can replace a person and eliminate the danger of that person getting injured,
Yeah.
and making the system more efficient. So I think the advancements are really cool to watch. And, if you're in there and you continue to look towards the future, you know, success is just limited to how far you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Is the AI portion of this condition monitoring, systems that we've been developing, or I've seen come out with the auto lubricators and
Mhm.
monitoring all that, is AI going to be a pretty useful tool, or do you think a lot of people are going to try to force like the AI models that we have now? Are they separate and they're dabbling in it, or do you think everybody's full on board and going to try to utilize that?
On the true condition monitoring systems, yeah, AI is part of it.
Yep.
And because what it does is it'll take readings for 30 days and then learn upon those readings and try to place mins and maxes. And when it goes outside of that mins and max, what caused it? You know, um, is it to that point yet? No.
Okay.
But what it is to is it's giving you the data so that we can interpret it. I
Yeah.
think eventually AI is going to be able to interpret it to the point where it's going to say, hey, pump number 17 out in the North 40, you have contamination in your oil. You have two options. You can change your oil, or in 30 days, you can replace the bearing. I think it's going to really start giving that. I just think that, the learning is only, um, it's only capped off on what the mind can think,
Yeah.
because it's data in, data out.
Yep.
A lot of
Sure.
the AI is. So it's just manipulation of that data. So there's guys out there much, much smarter than me that are looking back and they develop stuff that we don't even know of. So it's going to be really cool to see where the industry goes. But I think AI is going to play a big, big part in the overall efficiencies of plants in the future.
Yeah, another one of those passion points, for that
Yep.
next generation, if they're super interested in that AI. I mean, and I've seen it too. I mean, that could be a huge avenue for our business to try to get that next generation of bearing lifer in something
Yeah.
that doesn't exist today. So that's pretty excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Rob, that's it for my questions. I really appreciate you coming on and taking a couple minutes just to kind of tell us your story and really provide some magic to the podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Ben, putting this together and just keeping it going, because I feel these stories need to be heard. And when they get heard, it just it piques the interest of that next generation that's coming up behind us.
Yeah, I
So
got I got some pretty fun ideas if we keep this thing going for next year. We're gonna do a couple more, hopefully a couple more seasons, and we kind of grow on this thing. But
yeah,
we see the value. I mean, a lot of our employees here watch these things, and they can kind of see the type of people that we're interacting with, and I think that's important, just for the
yeah,
industry, even for the guys that are in the grassroots level, get actually working on the product with their hands. So it's been really fun. It's been a pleasure having people like you on.
awesome. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thanks, Rob. No, appreciate it, man. Thank you. As we wrap up this episode of Bearing Lifers, thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more stories that keep this industry in motion. If you or someone you know is a true bearing lifer and would like to be featured, don't let there be any friction. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep your bearings running smoothly.